Well, welcome everybody to Down and Dirty, Badge State Tractor Pullers. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Slamin Enterprises, Wet and Camp Transport. Uh, Ed, I'm not the guy that usually does this. Ed Casper Ag Services, Front Street Toys, and Trip Downing. So thank you. And tonight we have Ben from Holganics with us, and we're going to talk a little bit about Hillsboro, and he's going to have tell us a little bit more about what's going on with Holganics. Stacy, you were in Hillsboro. What'd you think of everything?
Well, the Mother Nature was kind of pesky to us up there Friday night, that's for sure.
Yep.
It didn't actually rain, but it was a heavy mist, I guess, and a little bit of drizzle tossed in. But it was more than enough to muddy up the show where we couldn't pull Friday night, and everybody was pretty much in agreement. By the time, if and when we could get going, it'd be 2 o'clock in the morning, and nobody's really interested in that either. So. Yeah, that was kind of a bummer. But Saturday night show, even though we got that little shot of rain just a half hour before pull time, I think we only started 20 minutes past our scheduled start. So they overcame that pretty quick, and we had a nice show Saturday night. Really good show. Big crowd Saturday night. Glad to see all the fans to come out because Hillsboro isn't close to any metropolis area or an interstate highway as far as that goes. So those were true fans that came out Saturday night to be with us there, and it was a good pull. It was I think we had 110 hooks or something like that across the two tracks. That's a lot of iron to put down through there. James Slama and his crew, they did a tremendous job on the track. I've never seen 4-engine modifieds brought down to their knees before, as were the pro stocks. I mean, that track was taking all the power everybody had to offer Saturday night, that's for sure.
Yep.
And in true Don Slama fashion, no stone was left unturned. I mean, they had everything covered there Saturday night, and it was a real good show. And it was funny. The horse come out and presented the flag for us for the national anthem. That was so superbly done. After Don and John honored our veterans out there, that's a nice touch that Don does for that event, honoring those guys, our veterans out there. But that horse stopped and took a big dump right on the track. and Don goes over there with a line bag that was laying there that they used to put the lines down, and he takes his foot and scoops it up into that line bag and takes it over and drops it on the other side of the wall. He said $100. I tried to auction it off, but we weren't getting no opening bid, so we moved on to something else that I think we were pulling by then. So, but Hillsboro Saturday night
too, that people might not knowing that Don took the purse from Friday night and doubled Saturday night's purse.
Yeah, and
everybody got a little something.
Yeah, and I think that was out of the goodness of his heart. I don't know where that purse money came from. I got a sneaky suspicion that I know, though. And that was that. The pullers, I'm sure they all appreciate it. We had a couple good meals in the afternoon there on Friday afternoon and Saturday afternoon. And a lot of money raised for the community there. With only one session, obviously our opportunities were somewhat limited to raise money, but the 50-50 raffle, the winner's take on the 50-50 was $3,148. I do know that. And that stayed local. A woman over in Lone Rock won that. So that was good to see. And they gave away, I don't know how many pallets of beer, raffled them off, sold them, auctioned them, however they did it. But that was pretty good. Bungarts with their sleds, they did a great job all weekend. I think we only had one sled reset, and that was Tony McDonald in the 4-1 class. He pushed him to the limit right off the bat. And I'm trying to think, our Wisconsin pullers, our Badger State pullers, they gave themselves a good showing up there. Scott Naring winning the Champions Tour 2-wheel drive class was pretty cool. And Brian Rickliff's winning the 4-1 class. He won the first Badger State Pull of the Year up there in Sauk. So that's nice to see him win. And Brandon Coase, he hasn't been out on the Badger State circuit much this year, but winning the pro stock class, that was not a surprise to me. Them guys are pretty tough anyway. Um,
Right.
and
Beating Kevin Masterson's by an eighth of an inch or something, right?
Yeah, it was six 1,000 tenths, hundreds, 6/1,000ths of a foot. So I don't know
Yeah.
that much. It wasn't very much, but that was good close pulling. Track stayed consistent all night. The winners were coming out of all different positions. One thing that was pretty evident: if you're willing to gamble and run a sideline, it generally paid off for you because that's where some of the winning runs came from. In the mini modifieds, Adam Kessler put it over on that right hand side. Boy, he laid down a picture perfect run to win that. And in the 4-1 class, me and John were up there announcing. We're saying, man, nobody's tried that left side of the track all night. By golly, the last three guys did. They finished first, second, and third. So,
Yeah.
so I guess somebody does listen to us once in a while.
And
And
talk louder. Yeah.
yeah, right. And
Yep.
I do know that Frank Molitor shoots a pretty mean t-shirt gun. he shot a t-shirt up there and nailed me pretty good. And I was like, "Whoa, that baby's got some mustard on it." And I didn't even get the t-shirt. A guy sitting 3 rows down in front of me, he got the t-shirt. So that was all right.
Bounced it off your forehead.
No, he bounced it right off my chest, man. That thing's got some mustard behind it. I was like, "Oh man, I've been hit." Um, Beth did a great job up there taking care of our books for us all night. And Steve and Dirk on the track on the finish line end, they were soldiers out there all night, flagging them boys down. Had a couple of wild rides. One of the 2-wheel drive guys put engine block and oil and connecting rods on the track. Hate to see that for anybody. Trying to think what other wild rides there were. One of the guys, I'm trying to think, it was in the pro stock or 4-1 class, put it so close to the wall on the right hand side that they couldn't get the dolly wheels on the sled to come down. They had to pick up the front of the sled and set it over so he could back it up to the sled. So there was some of that going on. That always makes things a little bit interesting.
Yeah.
But
Justin Wagler.
is that who did that? Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, because he started off on the left-hand side and went straight to the right. That's right. Yeah, that was a pretty interesting pass he had there too. Trying to think what other Wisconsin boys did good up there. Trying to think. It's going to escape me. Wow. Yeah, I think I got it. The classes all covered that we pulled in anywhere. The Wisconsin
Well,
boys.
round was in the top 3, I believe.
Yep.
Round. And,
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Nope.
Yeah.
And the guys in the diesel trucks with Rip and Strandley, them guys that put the bigger turbos on, went run with it. I was really impressed.
Yeah. I talked to. Yeah, Jared, he put the 4-1 Charger on, so it was a half a get, 0.5 bigger than what he usually runs, and his truck liked it. He held the lead for a little while there. He hooked early, of course. And then Greg Stranley, he had a 5.0 turbocharger on that truck, and he said, "Boy, did that thing like it." And he said he wasn't going to change it back; he's going to leave it like that. So we'll see.
He's
we'll
not
see how that
taking
plays.
Not taking it off. He called me today and wants to make a test pass with it up in Beaver Dam Wednesday night because he wants to go to the Shy Diesel Extravaganza next weekend.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, he's pretty excited about it. Must have felt pretty good to see. And the truck liked it. It didn't bounce one iota. It was a good smooth pass. So the truck evidently likes more power. Speaking of the diesel trucks, a guy from Wisconsin did win that. Craig Dickey with the Cummins Killer 3. And boy, them guys brought in quite an operation. If you looked at their program in the pit area there, they're not messing around, are they?
No, they've got some nice stuff, nice equipment there. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Wisconsin did a pretty good job for themselves. Don Slama and his whole crew, they really go all out for that event. I'm so sorry. I felt bad for them losing Friday night, but it was the right decision. The fact that we never even touched the track on Friday night showed up Saturday night when they had such a terrific pulling track.
Yep.
So I mean that's what it is. I don't know if Don got enough rain to collect on his rain insurance or not, but that didn't seem to be the question when he called all the drivers in Friday night and told them what his plan was. So it all went well. And then Sunday on the way home, weather was nice. How about that?
Yep, it was. Yep, it was.
Yeah,
it was. So, well, anybody have comments? Well, we don't have Mitch or Ryan here to put our comments on from people, so we're kind of he's got to work or something else going on. He said he'd get us going, and that'd be it. But
Yeah, we're flying by the seat of our pants, folks. If you're watching, so if something happens technical wise, we're out of luck. Although my technology's working right now, so I'm happy with that.
yep, I am too. Yeah, Ben, if you haven't watched us before, if we get somebody jumps in and it messes everything up. So we're prepared for it, but we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Except we'll all go away and you'll wonder what happened. So don't feel bad. It's
Yep.
We'll come back
nothing to do with you.
feed.
Nothing to do with you or
Yep.
us or anything. So
Yep.
anyway, Greg, do you want to talk about Beaver Dam or save that till the end?
We can talk about that at the end a little bit.
Okay, let's talk to Ben. He's nice enough to come on here and visit with us here tonight. I'm interested in what he's got to say.
Yep. Ben, you're here to talk about the carbon program a little bit more through Organics, a little more information.
Yes, sir. And be ready to answer some questions from the live audience and folks if they have it regarding anything they want to talk about: carbon markets, carbon emissions, environmental claims and sustainability programs, and the whole 9 yards that we've had conversations about with some of the Pullers Association and growers and producers in the region up there in Wisconsin. And listening to you guys talk about the event there in Hillsboro was fun for me, because that is a totally foreign language from a guy down here in Northwest Arkansas. I went to my first tractor pull ever a couple of weeks ago down in Warrensburg, Missouri, at a couple of events down there. But everything else is way over my head. So I got to learn a little bit from you guys kicking off there on the event this weekend.
Perfect. That's why we're here. We're here to make fans of tractor pulling. So
it sounds great. Yeah. So Organics, I think over the last few years, the way that we've started working with some of the Pullers Associations, NTPA, I believe it is, an outlaw tractor puller association, is we really started finding groups of folks that were really leaders in their community, folks that people looked up to, a jovial crowd of people that really like to get out and be in the community on the weekends in addition to their day job during the week. And we said to ourselves, kind of, what better group to represent some of the core values that we have here at Organics than Pullers. And so
right, and I think you've got a ag-based sport here that you're not going to get more ag-based than this.
100%.
I believe.
Yeah, and talking about the people who like to get out and socialize and be around and have fun on the weekends, we are definitely your target audience. That's for sure, because we proved it last Saturday night up in Hillsboro. That's for sure. Yeah. So Ben, talk us about the carbon stuff. I know very little about it. I know they do carbon trading or stuff like that. I don't know. You give us a little bit of the background on that part of it from the get-go, from somebody that don't know anything, which is me.
Absolutely. So we started with our product, Bio 800 from Organics, back in 2010. And that product was used almost exclusively at the time in turf applications and nurseries and growing trees and ornamentals. And as we started expanding that business and realizing what kind of power we had in the product, we made a very decisive switch to grow the business into row crop agriculture in 2016, and started building out the roots of a team basically to do that across the I-states, primarily Midwest, Northern Midwest, and then have kind of expanded from there over the last 10 years or so. As we were developing the product, we started seeing all of these outcomes. And some of the outcomes were, purely agronomic. So better yields for growers, guys able to use less water, less fertilizer, keep yields consistent. But we also started seeing soil carbon, the actual organic matter in the ground, going up pretty dramatically, way more than we had seen with a traditional sort of regenerative agriculture approach. That could be planting cover crops or using manure and reducing tillage. We had really seen the carbon and the organic matter grow with our product. And we started to say, okay, we're noticing these trends in the United States, but also globally, where companies, food and beverage companies, Anheuser-Busch, Busch Light, all the way through tech companies, Apple, Google, Facebook. They're making corporate goals around being more sustainable and reducing their overall environmental footprint, their negative environmental footprint. Is there a way for us to sort of be a bridge between growers and producers that on the ground are adding organic matter to their soil, and these companies that are way downstream of them, but they're connected to row crop in some way, and they want to take credit for some of these outcomes and invest in that transition? So we started measuring organic matter. And over time, we started to see this organic matter go up in such a way that we were able to measure it and quantify it and bring it to market as a second or third commodity for folks that are enrolled in our program, and actually make them a revenue stream coming from carbon in addition to them selling grain.
Now, Ben, I'm pretty novice here. How does your product get applied? Is it a liquid or is it a granular? How do we get it on the ground?
Yep, you get it on the ground as a liquid. So in a sprayer, some guys knife it in. There's quite a bit of folks in my area, sort of Missouri and west of us, Kansas and Nebraska, that are applying it in furrow as well, and maybe even side dressing it. But it's a liquid application. It's mixed with water. No additional equipment required. That's kind of the beauty of it. We've tried to design it so it integrates directly into existing operations. And we have two applications, Stacy. We do a fall and a spring application. The goal, if guys can, especially in those northern latitudes where you guys are at, where it gets cold in a hurry after harvest, is our product loves a little bit of warm temperature and a little bit of moisture. So if you can chase the combine with it and get it on the ground in the fall, right after you're doing passes in the field. And then for the spring product, we do that pre-planting, or sometimes right at planting, but somewhere in that April, May, June timeframe. And those are the two application rates.
So will your product, if applied in the fall, and say we do get an early frost, freeze, whatever, will it wait to wake up till springtime then?
It's funny you asked that question, because one of the ways that we actually store our product and keep all of the biology dormant is through cold chain. So being cold is okay. The biology likes to be dormant, and it will go dormant in your soil naturally in the wintertime. Just like when you guys get that deep frost, that biology likes to settle down and it's not active quite as fast. But then as soon as you get some warmth and some water, it kicks right back up. And the nice thing about applying live biology instead of a sporoform that's, in a powder, in a jug, or comes, tightly sealed in plastic, is it's aerobic, meaning it's alive. So when it goes on the ground, it establishes right away and it self-replicates, which is great. It's not single strand or 6 strands that's powderized. It goes on the ground, hits right away, and starts to colonize.
Now, when you say self-replicates, to me that means reproduces, so it expands, or what's that mean?
Yeah, it does. It reproduces. So there's a number of different predators in the mix, right? We've got bacteria, they're the smallest. You've got fungi, they're the next biggest. Then you have protists and beneficial nematodes and some of those macroorganisms that live in our solution. And each one of those is really important, right? Because we test a lot of soils across the country. That's one of the beauty of our programs, is just how many soil samples we're testing. And believe it or not, guys, 90 to 95% of the soils we test, especially ones that field apply manure, they're about 90 to 95% bacteria dominant. And when you have a bacterial system that's that heavy of a ratio, that bacteria likes to eat fertilizer. So it locks onto that fertilizer. And even if you over apply, basically all you're doing is feeding the bacteria in the soil. That bacteria locks up that fertilizer. There's no way for it to release it without that predator to come down and eat that bacteria and process that macro through its system, and then be able to kick it out as nitrate and ammonia, which is plant available. So that's the beauty of having a diverse consortium. But you basically have that fungal network, and those different bacteria start to grow and self-replicate and establish themselves in the soil. And then from there, it's kind of game on. They're able to do exactly what they do best, and that is actually cycle nutrients that are plant available for the crop.
Right. And when you and your tillage, you guys recommend when you spray it on not to do deep tillage with it, more of a vertical till type system, maybe, right?
Yes, sir. And there's two reasons for that. The first is for the grower. If we can help guys with compaction, the need to tillage naturally starts to be reduced. Now, there's going to be stuff that happens. Grain cart hits a muddy end row, makes a bunch of ruts. It's a pain in the butt to farm. You need to go out and fix it. You get a really bad rainstorm or a series of floods or something, and you get some compaction. That field goes anaerobic for a period of time and starts to develop a hard pan. We understand there's stuff that just happened on the farm that need to be fixed. But over time, soil structure and better soil structure is really the reason why you can put the deep rippers in the barn and frankly never get them out again. So if we can help with the soil compaction, that's the biggest issue. The second reason is on the carbon side. When you run deep rippers through a field, you're effectively unnaturally aerating soil, and you're exposing fungal networks that love to be in cool, dark soils. You're exposing them to oxygen and UV light. That's bad for those fungal networks. That kills them effectively. The same way, us lying out on the beach without any sunscreen, we get burned real bad. That UV light, is harmful to fungi. So the more you can leave that undisturbed, the more it is able to support that root exudate network deep down 6, 12, 18 inches and really get established. And all of that fungi acts like glue for your soil particles. That is the mode of action that helps reduce compaction. So we love fungi in the soil. That fungi is really your building block to be able to put those deep rippers away.
Right. And we've been using it for a couple of years now, and I think we've seen better. The poorer the soil, the better the results we've seen. I don't know if that makes sense to you. And we have manure on a lot of our land too.
Yep. Yeah, there's been, down by me here in Arkansas, if anybody's familiar with this area, it's the headquarters for chicken production in the Southeast. We got a lot of poultry litter, and poultry litter is really hot when it goes out. It's very high in phosphorus, very high in potassium. It's fairly acidic. And so we have a lot of guys here that say, hey, I've been land applying chicken litter for 25, 30 years, and I haven't really seen that much of a bushel increase in terms of production. And we go and test their soil, and the available nutrients are off the charts, off the charts, just like it is with hog or bovine manure. And they're like, well, what's happening? Why am I not getting any of it? Why am I not seeing that benefit? And most of the time it's because it's locked up. And once you're able to have that nutrient cycling actually be plant available, that total nutrient switches over to total available nutrient, which is exactly what I want to see. Yep.
And that's where you can start cutting your dry fertilizers, and your commercial fertilizers.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. When you are able to really sit down with your agronomist and build out a fertility plan that takes into account what is actually working in your soil versus just the synthetic or the added replacement rate, that's when you're able to say, I can actually find headroom in my fertility budget for using a biological product versus just having it be additive to your existing fertilizer budget. To be able to reduce 10, 20, 30% over the period of a couple of years on nitrogen, and especially on P and K, that's usually the easiest we see for guys that are maybe a little nervous about cutting back year one. They might not want to jump right into a 10 or 20% nitrogen reduction, especially if they're already pretty low, hovering near that sort of land grant university recommended replacement rate. But that P and K is usually pretty high, especially in the cow manure side. And they're able to cut that pretty quick and save, frankly, in this day and age with prices the way they are, they're able to save a boatload of money on the fertility bill.
Right. And not only have we put it on row crops, we've put it on our alfalfa too.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I haven't seen anything there yet, but is there, maybe it'll help the soil when we do put a row crop on, or have you seen any benefit in alfalfa?
So alfalfa is not something I can comment on directly, but I'll give you and the audience, Greg, a little bit of a teaser. So I mentioned kind of the chronology of Holganics and when we started first kind of uncovering that carbon side of the business. We've been asked by a lot of customers and a lot of growers too that are out there using our product. Hey, can we use it on pasture? Cut hay, smooth brome, coastal, alfalfa, anything in the grazing department. The answer kind of more broadly is yes. I think there is certainly logic to that thinking. We just don't have the full data sets yet, but we're working on them. So that's part of the beauty of evolving into those different markets. I think the pressure on cutting hay, cutting alfalfa, or grazing alfalfa is going to be significantly improved with better soil health. You won't see as much drought impact. You might see quicker rebound on second and third cutting if you are baling it. But what I'm really interested in, and that's a data set we're working on right now, is actual nutritional density. So as you produce a crop on an acre of ground that might have marginal soil or depleted soils, and then an acre of ground that has very, very healthy or microbially active soil, we're working on building a data set that actually shows out just how much better quality for either a feed ingredient, a diet feed ingredient for animal protein, or for potentially even milk production, that alfalfa will be.
And then earlier you said, you started out with golf courses and stuff like that. And why would they do it? What's the benefit for them?
Have you ever been out to a golf course 2 or 3 weeks after a drought and seen those guys basically scrambling to try to make sure greens aren't yellow when members show up on Saturday? That's the biggest reason. So the water conservation, most of those golf court grasses have relatively shallow roots historically. But if they have deeper roots, they can access water deeper. And so they were the fundamental kind of thesis for a lot of those course managers and superintendents was, if I can get deeper roots, I can typically lower my watering bill for irrigation. And if I'm able to manage mowing pressure every single day and not have to do a fungicide application for disease pressure, that was really saving them a lot of money on the superintendent side. So yeah, it's a pretty unique thing. We originally had the first test cases for Holganics product way back in the day on some golf courses in the Chesapeake Bay area, out in Maryland, Mid-Atlantic, Virginia. And those guys were also really concerned with runoff. If you're familiar with Chesapeake, it's a very shallow body of water. They're very prone to algal blooms and fishery issues out there. And if the golf courses were basically catching a lot of the blame for some of that nutrient runoff, and those superintendents were under a ton of pressure to cut fertility.
That's good for them. That's good all around. And then one story I heard from somebody in your organization said that the Amish were one of the first ones to try and use it in their, in their crops. And is that about right? Or
I wouldn't doubt it. I haven't heard that story myself, but those anecdotes run deep. And if you're familiar with that, where our founder and our current, founding CEO, Barrett Ursek, is based, it's Westchester, Pennsylvania. And about an hour radius outside of Westchester is very prevalent Amish country there in Pennsylvania. So those guys have some pretty good looking soybeans typically, especially when you drive through sort of that southeast Pennsylvania corner. It's very much ag heavy. It's much smaller parcels than we're dealing with out here, but some of those guys have like a home 15 or a home 20 versus a home 240. But pretty good ag in that area. Yeah.
Yep, I've been into Pennsylvania. I was an exchange student way back in the days for 4-H. I was there for quite a while in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of Amish where I was. I don't remember the name of the town. I was 12 years old. But that was a long time ago. But yeah, it was fun.
So Ben, what kind of application? Is this an annual application, or do you say once every 3 years, or what do you guys looking at?
We have a twice a year application, but I want to talk a little bit about our carbon program side too. So
go ahead with that.
Yep, there's tons of growers in our world that want to use the product. Right, we're an ag company first, and I think that's really important to mention here, our team, especially the team that supports Wisconsin and a lot of the growers there, Billy Strike and Brian Kent, those guys are on the road all the time, out visiting with growers and making sure that they're happy with the product, that they're seeing results, that if they have any agronomic questions, that we're, poised and there with them step by step to answer. But if folks want to really jump on this soil carbon journey and they are committed to, frankly, changing the profitability on their farm and really seeing kind of a different future than we've been faced with for a while here with conventional ag, we have a 3-year carbon program called Farm Possible. So our growers commit to use the product fall and spring for 3 years. They commit to a fertilizer reduction. We typically ask for about 10% overall. And they commit to that conservation tillage or that low till, no till approach. So we require shallower than 6 inches of tillage. And that commitment lasts for 3 years of the use of the product. And then they have an ongoing commitment to reduced tillage for a period of 7 years. So total of 10. When they participate in that program, Organics and the HGX team, which is the team where I sit, we come out every single year and we provide a full suite of testing and data back to that grower. So we're going to be measuring organic matter. We're going to be measuring CEC, pH, looking at available nutrients, looking at bulk density, looking at compaction rates. And that grower will have all that information kind of at their fingertips to work with their agronomist and make sure they've got their next year's seed purchase and next year's fertility purchase, pretty much lined out. But in exchange for those program commitments, we pay our growers $70 an acre for 3 years. And what we do on the back end of that is we have measured and monetized, and we're bringing that carbon credit to market on behalf of those growers. So that's where that $70 an acre payment actually comes from the sale of that carbon credit. And we sell that carbon credit for that 3-year commitment. Beyond that, we don't come back and monetize any credits beyond that 3-year, but that grower gets that incentive. And frankly, by the end of that 3-year period of time, that grower's dirt is fundamentally changed. I think we've got a lot of folks that are entering year 3 or coming out of year 4 of a program with us that said, hey, even if this carbon credit payment went away tomorrow, my operations are different. My profitability here is different just because my dirt's so much better. So we do that for a 3-year program. And then some of our buyers in the market, we can talk about this because I think it's interesting for folks, current political climate in the US, you don't hear about climate and carbon a lot. That's totally normal, right? But what I always like to tell people is when you think about a company like Walmart or Casey's or Anheuser-Busch, those companies are designed to outlast these 4-year political cycle changes, right? They're designed to last 50, 100, 1,000 years. So when they're looking at a strategy for investing in farmers so that corn and soybeans and rice and wheat and barley actually shows up on their production floor when they need it to make a product, they're not looking at a 4-year presidential cycle. They're looking at 20 or 30 years of profitability for their growers. So it's pretty easy for them to invest in a 3-year program. That's pretty short term. And the way that they're doing that today is there is no such thing as a soil health credit. That doesn't exist. That's not like a currency or a token that exists today. Maybe future state that exists, but what does exist today and can serve as kind of a proxy or a token for a corporate like Anheuser-Busch actually investing in my farm here in Arkansas or Missouri is through carbon. They know how to quantify carbon. They know what the unit of measure is. They know that carbon influences productivity in crops and growing forests and, that environmental ecosystem. So they say, look, we're going to put money towards this investment in carbon. We're going to treat it as a commodity, and we're going to use that investment to create an outcome that we want for our supply chain. So for any food and bev company, anyone that deals with ag, that supply chain is our growers. And that's what we do to connect those two folks.
Perfect. That's cool. And how you get connected is, should we go through like what you do for Badger State is, I know I'm just going to say Bill Smith in Lafayette County is going to have a growers meeting coming up here shortly. I don't remember the date off the top of my head. but you get the local guy to bring people in, and you guys, they supplied a great meal for the one we did in Baraboo. Great information, and they picked up a few thousand acres there, if I remember right. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it went really well. I mean, so if you want to have a growers meeting, I would say, and that's where you get started, right?
Yep, you nailed it, Greg. There's a couple of decisions that have been made internally at Holganics that I'm really supportive of, and that is that we don't go through more traditional ag retail channels. We want to work directly with the grower. I think that's important because if something goes wrong, we're actually there to show up. We're not relying on a retailer to sort of make that right and pinch their business. But I love working with growers, on the ground in communities. That's my favorite thing to do. I think that's frankly the best part of our entire team's job is building that grower relationship. And then ultimately what we do is we have produced a physical product, but we also have to make sure that product actually gets to growers in the field. So When you talk about logistics, most of our production capacity where we actually make Bio 800 is either in West Point, Iowa, Kansas City, Missouri, or Westchester, PA. So we have strategic folks around the country that have either cold storage capacity or they have enough room in their shop where they can store some totes of product for us for periods of time and help distribute to that last mile grower if they're in a more remote region that's harder for us to access. So a lot of our referrals, a lot of the ways that we've grown into communities is through farmer to farmer network. And that's really important for us. That's a huge reason why we've engaged so much with the Pullers Association, because it's an influential community. It's a group of guys that love to sit around, be friends, talk about what's worked, talk about what hasn't worked, BS on economics, BS on, politics like that. That's the type of community that we want to be in. And there's no better way to grow and build trust and build intimacy with folks than having farmer to farmer referrals and doing a nice dinner and everybody comes in and we're learning together. There's folks that may have heard this soil health talk 30 times, right? And there may be folks that are there for the first time and it totally blows their mind and they've, never heard about carbon or never heard about, mycorrhizal fungal networks, right? That's an opportunity for all of us to learn together. We love that.
Right. And I think one of your biggest hurdles is because for 30 times they've heard this and it was going to work and you were going to get paid and nothing really happened. But you guys are making it happen.
Yeah, I think that's a really big focus for our leadership team. And I'll mention here Brian Hansel. If you've been to a grower meeting in Wisconsin, especially in some of the early days, Brian Hansel, who grew up in Iowa, and he's our chief revenue officer, so he's responsible for all commercial. He showed up in a lot of these grower meetings early on and was frankly built the program based on feedback that we got directly from farmers. And what some of his kind of most passionate statements is that all of the programs that had been offered to folks that he spoke with, they never focused on the farmer first. The farmer was the last person to get paid in the capital stack. So you had a guy that had to stretch line of credit, stretch loans, buy seed, buy fertilizer, pay monthly bills for equipment costs, hire custom applicators, whatever the reason was. They're in the hole. They're in the red for the majority of the year. And then you had another organization that was approaching them and saying, I would like to buy the rights essentially to your carbon. I will measure it on your behalf. So no money out of pocket. I'll bring it to market whenever that might be, 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later. And then when I get paid, I'm going to pay myself back first. I'll pay the investors back second. I'll pay my testing crew third. And whatever money's left over, we'll pay to you. Yeah. So there were guys that entered. So there were guys that entered into carbon programs or into these commitments for producing this positive environmental outcome. And they did everything right. Everything by the books, everything right for 3 or 4 years. And by the time they actually saw money back to them for what they had done, that company could have been out of business. right? It's 5 years later, 6 years later, or they just didn't get what they expected. So we are committed to, in a way, disrupting that old way of doing business and putting the grower first. Our grower is the first person to get paid the following year after a crop harvest for our carbon program. And so I think that's very novel. It's, I think, the reason why we're on 5 million acres this year. And some of these other programs that have been around for a decade are on less than 1 million. So I really do hope that we're walking the walk and talking the talk, because without the farm communities that we work in, we're not a business.
Yep. And I can vouch that you just don't drop the product off and say good luck. You guys are hands-on and have been available for questions and trying to get us in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. And it's
Yep.
pragmatic and it's common sense, right? If we go to a grower meeting and all the feedback from growers is the product doesn't work, or the application is difficult, or the carbon payment doesn't show up, or your field testing crews are in the field when I'm trying to do stuff, or my neighbor's hunting, or it's danger. Like we have to take that feedback into account, because that program is not successful without the grower's commitment. So that's what we love to do. But yeah, I wanted to make sure, we have any questions from the audience rolling in that we should pay attention to that you want to answer at this time?
I'm so sorry that Ryan is not here, because he's the guy that usually gets them,
Okay.
our host, and he had to work. But if there's any questions, please send them to me and I can maybe forward them on to you.
Yeah.
Most of the guys have my email or Stacy's or something, or text, or my phone number's on our website. So if you have any questions, I will forward them right to you. How's that sound, Ben?
That sounds great. Yeah, me and the team can tackle them. We'd be happy to do that. We do all sorts of stuff for questions. I think the number one question that we get from growers, and this varies by region, is, I was approached last year by NRCS or EQIP for this other program, or I entered into a program with, I'm trying to think of one that might be relative for you all, Saputo Dairy, perhaps, or Schreiber Dairy, and they're paying me a premium for my grain. Can I participate in that program and do the HGX Farm Possible with Organics? Send those our way. Brian and Billy and I review those all the time and make sure that if a grower is considering a program, or they're already enrolled in something, that we don't accidentally dual enroll them in something that's a conflict. Because that, that looks bad on us for not doing due diligence, but it also may have negative recourse for the grower, and that's the last thing we want. So a lot of my job is making sure that the program that we grow and we're doing on new acres is very safe and protective for our company and for the grower to participate in.
I was approached we have an old manure system. A guy stopped by the week ago and wanted us to rent our old manure storage to put whey in from milk. And I said, well, I'm going to call somebody and ask them to make sure that I can spray the whey on the fields without, hindering anything you're doing here.
Yeah, that's great. Yep, that's exactly the type of partnership we want to have with growers. We want to be the first call you make if something quirky comes across your phone or your desk or your coffee table.
Yep. We will definitely be getting you that information.
So I think the last point that I can mention, and then, wrap up and take questions as they come in from folks down the road, is Billy mentioned to me that farmers like us and our communities here, we're feeding the planet and we're healing the planet. And there's a very different narrative that exists in parts of the country around what farmers do and how farmers farm. And I think what we're doing is showing and teaching and inviting people in that previously don't have an ag background to see the type of magic that we can actually do to move the needle here to feed the planet and heal the planet. Yep. And when it comes to carbon markets, whether you believe in carbon or whether you believe in the narrative that's been told around climate change or not, I don't really care. You're my neighbor, and we should know that what we're doing in rural America is feeding the planet and healing the planet. And
Yep.
when it comes to this carbon commodity, if it's something that our growers can take advantage of, you already have the value that's invested in your land, right? And that acts as a commodity. Land goes up and down in terms of value. You've got your
Yep.
grain that you produce, or your dairy, or your beef, or your chicken. That's a commodity that goes up and down. You're the best in the world at managing those two commodities. You're like an economist at managing those two commodities. There's a third
Yep.
commodity that whether it lasts for 10 years or 100 years, there's a third commodity that you all can take advantage of, and that's carbon. So we
Yep.
want to make sure that we're the bridge to help everybody in the communities where we work make sure that they're taking advantage of that third commodity, and they're doing so in a profitable way.
That just brings me back to, we had farm camp today at our farm. My son and daughter-in-law do a farm camp. We had 26 kids at the farm today, taking them around and showing them why we feed cattle the way we do,
Yep.
why we do the crops the way we do. And some of these, they're less than 1% of us are actually farmers anymore. And you want that out there saying, we are doing what we can to save the community. Why you put waterways in, why you mow waterways, why you do all this stuff. You know what I mean? And them kids, they don't think much of it now, but hopefully they remember that days later when somebody else is telling them that we're bad for the planet.
Right.
So that's a great goal for us,
Yep.
there. And that's the second one this year. I mean, she does 3 of them a year, and there's a bunch of kids every time.
That's great. I think some of the most impactful, meetings we've ever had with, the likes of very recognizable corporate brands that we see in the store on Walmart shelves or Dollar General every day. Some of the most impactful meetings is where we've had them out to the production facility in Kansas. We've shown them how we make Bio 800, how we ship it to growers, the kind of care we take in making sure that it shows up and works for our farmers, but then actually taking them to the field, seeing somebody chop silage, seeing somebody doing work on a machine, throwing a penetrometer in the soil and understanding the difference between, J-hooking on a corn root versus a very mature Explorer root that goes down because compaction's so low. Like that is magic for those folks that are in an office, 9 to 5, 40 hours a week to really see the field and touch it and feel it and be able to be there.
Yep. A couple of years ago, we had Didion is one of our Badger State sponsors too, Didion Grain, and their byproducts for corn, they make all kinds of stuff, and they had all the end users at the farm and brought us while we were harvesting, showing us this is where the beans start, this is where the corn starts, this is what it is. Gordon's Fish is the one guy I remember talking to him a lot. One of the product users, the cornmeal must be for the breading and the fish or something. I don't know, but he rode in the combine. They all rode in the combine. They're from the big city. They have never been to a farm. They didn't understand what we go through to get them their product. And they were really interested to see and hear all that. I mean, there was 3 big motor coach buses full of these people asking questions. It was pretty neat to do.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, they think of fish fry and walleyes on Friday, and that's all they see is the hot grease, right? And cornmeal. They don't understand what it takes to actually get it there.
Yeah, and that's a byproduct of ethanol too. They're using,
sure.
So that ethanol isn't just making gas and the stuff gets thrown away, but there's all cosmetics, and there's cosmetics people there and all kinds of neat stuff. It's a really neat tour, or to understand what Didion does with their grain, and they're pretty large ethanol producer.
Now, in your experience up there, Stacy and Greg, do you guys have exposure with folks in Wisconsin to ethanol and delivering to crush facilities for ethanol?
Yeah, all our corn pretty much goes to ethanol.
Okay. Yep. Maybe we can. We don't have to do this tonight, but certainly if folks have some questions on 45Z and the ethanol premiums that are being offered from certain facilities. I'm by no means the expert on 45Z, but we've been doing and answering quite a bit of questions for guys that probably worth the discussion on this podcast, whether it's us or someone else to help them with the 45Z stuff.
I've never heard of it, so I just learned something.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, there's certain ethanol plants, not every ethanol plant, but some ethanol plants that are getting a federal tax credit to produce a clean fuel. Okay. And they they apply for that tax credit, and if they get it, they're able to offer dollar per bushel premiums to folks that meet certain criteria when they deliver grain to the ethanol plant. You have to have a really low CI score, carbon intensity score.
Well, this would help that, right?
Yeah, so this type of product would help it, but there's certain exclusions regarding participating in the 3-year program versus just using the product. So there's a little nuance there, but ultimately, if you've got a good grower base within the Badger State Pullers Association that is interested in learning about 45Z, Billy and Brian, BK, and myself can figure out some info just to help with learning that.
Perfect. Well, that might even be kind of a meeting at our banquet without pullers,
Heck yeah, we could do it there. We could do it at one of the Go Grow meetings or one of the dinners where we do prime rib and bush light and talk about 45Z together.
Yep. Everybody's interested in how, like you said, we're right there always, if you're making money or not. You don't want to wake up or start the spring saying, I hope I break even this year. And there's the last couple of years, that's been tough to do.
Yeah.
So anything you can do to help, and everybody's ears are wide open when that happens, I think. So let's move on with that and some days. And do you have anything else, Ben, you want to talk about?
No, that was fun. I mean, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to do this, and great to meet you too. And come back with any questions, and would love to do it again sometime. And I also want to just listen into some of the tractor pulling lingo because I got to learn. That's very much 101 for me. So I got to get better at that.
Well, the guy right below us in the thing here is the best announcer in tractor pulling. We have the 2 best announcers in tractor pulling across the nation.
That's great.
Now I owe you money too.
There you go.
I don't know how you could do any announcing for anyone to hear crap at those events because everybody's got headphones and earplugs in, and you must be losing your voice every other weekend, Stacy.
I couldn't talk really good yesterday. I know that. I just kind of kept to myself.
Yeah.
But I got one question for we got you loose, Ben. We're always talking about our pulling tracks. We always used to say clay track's the best track, and then we find clay gets a little unruly at times. And hard to work with. But keep it where you need to be. So a lot of track builders always talking about putting organic matter back into the track to try to loosen it up a little bit, make it a little more forgiving. Would your product be something beneficial that we might, some of our promoters that have tracks that may want to look into?
Interesting question. I don't know. That's a very interesting question. What do they typically do to improve the structure of the soil in the track? Do they add sand or like a lime or an aggregate into it? Like what is typically the mix there in terms of
you grow a wheat or a rye on it, and then right the next year, right before you use it, you want organics in it.
Okay.
And you grow, like we tell everybody to plant wheat on it or rye in the fall. As soon as we're done, let it grow and just disc it in right before you start your pull.
Well, I can't envision a scenario where a biological that helps with root mass and breaking down organic matter doesn't help the track structure. It wouldn't be eligible for the program because it gets, destroyed every time you guys run over it and do all the work and disc it up. But it would certainly be an interesting test case for the product on something that has pretty heavy compaction load and heavy usage, heavy traffic. So I love the way you're thinking about that, Stacy. That's cool.
Greg's got a nice test plot for you up there in Sauk City. So there you go.
Cool.
Yep. Just had our last pull in Sauk here Saturday night too. So we've got to plant wheat on it here shortly.
If anybody has recommendations for me, I will be making what is only my 2nd trip to Wisconsin ever in my life, which is embarrassing. But we are going to a wedding this coming September up at a place called Stout Island. It's like 2 hours northeast of Minnesota. So if anybody's got, it looks like there's some pretty good. I mean, just on Google Earth, it's by Rice Lake. Rice Lake, and I'm not going to pronounce this right. Haugen, Haugen.
Hogan.
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 Yeah, so that's where we'll be. So if anybody has recommendations for me, a good dive bar or a restaurant or a place to stay up there near Stout Island, I'm all ears because we've never been up there, but it looks like a cool spot.
You'll like it. If you have a side-by-side, take it with you because there's a lot of trails to ride up there.
Are there? Yeah, that's cool. I heard there's a lot of public land up there, which I love to hear.
Yep. And even across private land, people have trails up there, railroad beds,
Yeah.
old railroad beds, and
Cool.
stuff like that. It's really neat. Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Well, we're up against our hour, so Ben, I want to thank you for coming on, and thank Stacy. You had some great questions at the beginning there. That was great. Love that people probably thinking the same thing, wondering what's going on. And I hope we can do this again, and I hope to meet you sometime, Ben. And I'm sure we will somewhere along the line.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Ben. You educated me a little bit. I'm retired, but I do work for an ag supply company seasonally, spring and fall. So
cool.
Yep. Stacy's got his fingers in some of it. Yep.
That's awesome.
So,
well, great to meet you guys, and to your audience. Thanks for sticking with us. And I had a blast, and I learned a lot. So we'll be back.
All right. Thanks, Ben. I'd like to thank our sponsors again, Slom Enterprises, Wet and Camp Transport, Front Street Toys, Casper Ag Service, and Trip Downing. So thank you guys all for helping us out with the show, and thanks for coming on. It was a great night, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. See
See you
y'all
later. Yep. Bye.